There we go. And we live from Moffitt Cancer Center. Guys, as always, I'm going to do a check first before I give an entire lecture, only to realize that my phones are not working. So any viewers out there, if you can guys just give me a thumbs up and say, we can hear you loud and clear. There's Gilda, I know you. There's my Miami folks right there. We got Chuck coming in from Wyoming. Thank you for coming in, guys. I am so excited about tonight's show. I have an amazing sitting next to me, but first we gotta figure out, make sure these mics are working. So guys, hear you talking. Cozy, stop talking and let your guests start talking. Give me something, guys. We're good. Okay, I'm getting a thumbs up from my awesome, I have a production team tonight, guys. I'm fancy. I have an amazing guest. I'm in a beautiful, beautiful hospital right now, and I have like a production team giving me thumbs up, working. Oh my gosh, you guys are awesome. Let's say our hellos. See so many of you coming in. We got Emily coming in from Central PA with water in her cup. We got Scott coming in. Scott helped me with my audio checks earlier. Thank you so much again, Scott. We got Richard coming in from Mission, Texas. Christine from Michigan. Tom, there's my Canadian Tom right there. We got Robert coming in from Georgia, listening in on the YouTube channel with coffee. We got Crystal from Tech. We got a lot of Texans on board tonight. I gotta watch myself. Drinking her Coca-Cola. We got Donna from Wyoming. Susan, there's my Susan right there. Susan, look at this picture. Look at this picture, Susan. Look what I got. Oh, of course, my computer's not going to load it, but it's there. It's there. I've got a beautiful picture of Susan. Guys, that is Susan. If you've never heard of Susan's story, go back to my YouTube channel. She's an amazing human being. So thank you so much, Susan, for your support and for being here tonight. Compadre, good to see you, man. Give a kiss to those girls for me. We got Marianne from South Dakota and Water. That's my girl Gilda right there. We got Chuck, Kristen, Richard. We got so many of you guys on board this evening. Bill, guys, thank you so much for your support. Tonight is a huge show for so many different reasons. I'm going to shut up for just a minute. I'm going to introduce you to my wonderful guest. This is Dr. Alex Lazarides. So thank you so much for being on board this evening.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Dr. Laz.
Yeah, so Alex Lazarides. I'm an orthopedic oncologist here at Moffitt Cancer Center. Originally from California, did most of my training in North Carolina, and I've been here in Florida for the past 4 years. And yeah, we're really honored to be here. Thanks for having us.
No, thank you. Who are watching for the first time, welcome. My name is Cozy Belloso. I'm in Tampa, Florida. Obviously, I am not broadcasting from my normal Cozy Talk studio tonight. I am live from Moffitt Cancer Center. So those of you who are new to the show, I've been a PT now for a little over 23 years and working with the amputee community and I am especially grateful tonight for the sponsorship from Integrum. They are the makers of the OPRA implant system, and we're going to be featuring some of their, and also for Moffitt Cancer Center for graciously allowing me to be here this evening, for all the staff that's been helping out with that as well. All right, guys, we have a lot to talk about tonight. I am so excited. Those of you who have watched my show, you know that Integrum has been a partner of the show for several years, and I am so excited that osseointegration has made its way to Tampa, Florida, thanks to Dr. Lazarides. So we are going to be talking a little bit about his this evening. Guys, you guys know I love my free giveaways, right? We love giveaway stuff. Integrum has these amazing swag bags chock full of goodies that we're going to be giving away 3 of tonight. So we're going to start it off, and I want you guys, I don't want any shy people on board. We all need to speak up right now. We got another text, and there's Van Gregory. He is the coolest guy ever. The stuff this guy can do. It keeps cutting out. Crystal, I do apologize. Guys, I'm broadcasting from YouTube, from Facebook, from Rumble, and I also believe from TikTok. So if you're having trouble watching, go hop and find me on another one. All right, guys, so here's the thing. First giveaway. I want you to tell me if you are an OI user. Real easy. Real easy. All you got to do is say yes or no. So are you an OI user? Yes or no? Go ahead and start the comment section. In the meantime, I got to brag a little bit about Moffitt Cancer Center, guys. So Moffitt Cancer Center is located in Tampa, on the campus of the University of South Florida. It is the only national institute that is based in Florida. Okay, so what does that mean? First of all, there's only 60 cancer centers like this in the entire United States. So that's already some pretty serious bragging rights right there. It means that it has excellence in the areas of lab research, clinical, and population sciences. I have to read from here because there's a lot of accolades here for Moffitt Cancer Center. Okay, they do a ton of the integration of research along with patient care. Am I getting everything right?
You got it.
So far, so good. And guys, if you've never heard of Moffitt Cancer Center, those of you who live in Florida, you know Moffitt Cancer Center. But if you've never heard, they are ranked up there with MD Anderson, Sloan Kettering, Ohio State University, and Johns Hopkins. So we've all heard of these. If you have a cancer center, they're right up there. They are right up there. And they are ranked by the U.S. News and World Report as the top 1% cancer center in the U.S., top ranked in Florida and the Southeast. All right, so serious props and the amount of work that they're doing here. I appreciate it. It's good to see you. Guys, so obviously we're in a cancer center, and Dr. Lazarides specializes in patients, and we know, if you've been watching my cancer amputations only account for 2% of the entire amputee population, so it's not a lot, which to me makes it even more impressive how much resources that Moffitt is dedicating towards the population. So it's pretty incredible right now. All right, so tell us a little bit more about yourself. So you went to school in North Carolina?
Yep. So I growing up, both my parents were in the biotech industry, both in biology PhDs, and so I always loved science and I love biology, but I wanted something a little bit more people-facing. And so going through school, I was exploring the different options and started shadowing different physicians at the hospital, and I knew that medicine was where I wanted to be. And so we all go into medicine to help people. But I'm an orthopedic surgeon, and that can seem, it's a little bit interesting. Like how, where are you guys helping people? How's that? Well, I would actually say that orthopedics is an amazing place to help people, and I kind of bring it back and kind of relate it all to oncology as well, because in orthopedics you have people that have had some sense of normalcy taken away from them, and we have this amazing opportunity to work with those patients to help give that normalcy back. And for me, having a science background and both my parents being in oncology, doing research on the science side, I found that orthopedic oncology was a very unique opportunity to go back and give them back that sense of normalcy in a big way. So it's a very niche field. There's only about 300 orthopedic oncologists in the U.S. And we're lucky at Moffitt to have 5 of them. It's a very that we get to form long-term relationships with patients and try to help them out in big ways and small ways.
That's incredible. And it was interesting. And speaking to the production team before we started here, they said, when you say that you work for a cancer center, somebody always has a story that they can relate to. And I'm sure that when you talk to people about your work, they have stories, yeah. Right? So guys, those of you who've been probably slightly familiar with my own story, and this is basically COSI Talks in the first place. So 10 years ago, December of 2015, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I had the choice of going to a cancer center that was 5 minutes from my home, or to this Moffitt Cancer Center that was much further away from my home, and it was a no-brainer for me. I came here for my cancer care, and obviously 10 years later, I'm very healthy and very grateful. And as a result of going through cancer, it was basically what lit the fire under my bum to open up my own practice dedicated to amputees that eventually morphed into this COSI Talks channel 8 years later. So this is a beautiful way to come full circle. When I spoke to Integrum, it being the month of October, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, I think it's Physical Therapy Month, there's all sorts of months going on in October. So I'm especially grateful to come full circle to this moment right here. And actually, we're sitting in the same building. I was looking up right there and I go, that's where I reported for surgery 10 years ago. So again, thank you to all the people who made this show possible. And again, guys, I can't stress enough, you hear me say this, finding quality care, it's an investment in your health. So if it means having to travel to find the doctors that are going to do the work that they can do, and I know many of you here have had to take that leap of faith yourself, right? So we're going to call a winner pretty soon for the people for the first giveaway. I know my girl Jamie back over there is looking to see who's going to win. So John says no, he does not have osseointegration. Crystal says no. Robert says no. Marianne says no, but I wish. I think you'd make kind of an interesting candidate, Marianne. No. Marty says no. So this is interesting. Bill says no. John says yes. So we've got a mixture of yes and no's of folks who have osseointegration. And guys, we've done several shows here about osseointegration, and we know that not everyone is a candidate, but for people who are candidates, it truly is life changing. Okay, so let's talk a little bit, just to give a quick review as to what is osseointegration, right? And he's going to keep me on track and make sure. I always like having someone who's like the real expert next to me while I'm doing this. So osseointegration basically means the fusion of bone with metal, and in this case, titanium. And they brought me a toy. Look, guys, I have my own. It's mine. It's mine. I'm even going to put my name on it and make sure nobody takes it away from me, right? So it's the fusion of metal with bone. Okay, so OPRA was founded by Denmark, and he, in 1990, performed the very first osseointegration surgery on an amputee, following father's work, right? So tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, all osseointegrated technology in very simple terms is integrating metal to bone, and specifically here we're talking about transcutaneous opportunities, but the basic technology here with Integrum is we have an internal fixture, and that's what's essentially bone is growing into and securing the metal on the inside. And then we've actually got a modular component. We're going to get into this a little bit more later, but what we've done is through this very specific surgical technique, you're actually creating layers that contribute to the success of this operation, and that is metal, and then bone, and then soft tissue, and then you've got a modular piece that can actually slide through that cutaneous hole, aperture basically, to integrate into the internal metal fixture. So that's the basic technology behind it, but in simple terms, you are figuring out a way to attach metal to bone.
Okay, and basically, guys, if you've seen some of my shows, I have a wonderful show I did with Dr. Doherty where we talked about the different kinds of osseointegration, because not all are created equal. So the ones that we feature tonight is the OPRA implant system. It is currently the only FDA-approved system in the United States, and for transfemoral or above-the-knee amputees. Okay, so that brings me to my question: what made you decide on this particular system? Because you had your choice.
We did, yeah. And I have to give a lot of credit to one of my partners, Dr. David Joyce. He did a lot of the legwork. He's, if you've ever met him, he's a very astute individual, loves to do his research. And so with him, we did a deep dive into all the opportunities available. I mean, the aspect of it being FDA approved was a huge appeal for us, but when you kind of peel away the layers, you realize why this is such a successful technology and a successful system. And so for us, it's really the two-stage process. It's the technology behind the actual fixture on the inside, the reproducibility of insertion and integration. And then it also is that modular aspect where we have an opportunity through the two stages to set the environment on the inside, make sure people are going to heal up, give their body a time to get ready for stage two. And then stage two is where we're doing a lot of the soft tissue work, and really creating a very unique environment that you're not going to find with any other osseointegration system, really, to give it a successful outcome. But it is a very particular series of surgeries and procedures to get it to the process of being able to have a successful outcome.
That's absolutely right. All right, we've got Dulcie on here. Let's look at the comments for a minute. Dulcie says, I'm an osteogenic sarcoma survivor. Congratulations, Dulcie. How many years? Put it in the section. That's something to brag about and celebrate right there. Thank you, Bill. Very kind of you. Thank you, Gilda. Adam says, I had stage 2 in June. Bill says, it seems like I see more AKs than BKs. Is that true? Yes. And the main reason is because it is obviously what is FDA approved. Now, if you are seeing BKs, in some cases you might actually also see above elbow or transhumeral OI as well in the United States. Those are usually under, I always get this wrong, investigational device exemption. Did I get that right? Okay. It's all these really fun acronyms, meaning that they sometimes make special exceptions prior to being FDA approved. So that's where you might see that. Now I'm curious to hear your thoughts on BKs and osseointegration. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I think it could be a great opportunity. I think we have to remember, the indications for thinking about osseointegration, and in its simplest form, right now, osseointegration is really indicated for patients who have failed a traditional socket prosthetic. And so I think that's really the best patient population to consider. But the reality is that there's plenty of patients who have issues with their traditional socket prosthetics, or for a number of reasons won't ever have a good opportunity for a socket prosthetic with their below knee amputation. But as we know, the higher up you go with your amputation level, the harder a prosthetic is to use and to accommodate, and that's why we see it more commonly in the above knee amputees.
And guys, I'm going to throw up a picture here, and hopefully my internet connection will allow me to do so. Yay! So this beautiful lady that you see here is Ginny. She is no stranger to the show. If you're not following her on Instagram, her handle is @SlimGinny. And as you can see, she's an amazing candidate. And if you've ever heard her story, she's actually the perfect candidate in the sense that she had a very short residual limb that kept being shortened throughout the years with surgeries, and it made it almost impossible for her to wear a traditional socket. And as you can see, she does handstands. I should have put the picture of her doing the handstand. So she is an incredible, beautiful success story here. And I also want to kind of put up this picture. I really love how this picture demonstrates. So guys, it is a two-part procedure like Dr. Lazarides just mentioned right there. With the first part of the procedure, they are implanting the fixture. So that's the part up here into the femur, the thigh bone right there. That's that metal implant. And after that procedure, everything is closed up and the person is healing anywhere from 3 to 6 months. Now, what criteria do you use, Dr. Lazarides, for moving on to stage 2?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely use a more accelerated protocol. A lot of our patients have already been not able to ambulate or have been unable to use their prostheses for a while. So we do try to give them the benefit of that accelerated protocol because we know that it can be tough, right, with a 2-stage procedure. However, you also want to think about biology. And so we really try to think about the patient that we're seeing in front of us. And so it's not the same for every single patient. If we have a patient that's had a little bit more of a complicated history, right, maybe prior infections or prior radiation or factors that we're worried may delay their wound healing, it is very likely that we're going to give them a longer recovery period just to make sure their bones healed, their soft tissues have healed. But I think for us, the 2-stage process is really nice because it's kind of a proof of principle, right? If you can't make it through the first stage and there's problems that arise, then that also helps us to understand that maybe completing the stage 2 of OI is not the best option. And the nice thing about it is that once you've had a stage 1, you haven't burnt any bridges. You can still use a traditional socket prosthetic before you commit to the integration component.
And we've actually had some folks that because they had an extended period of time between stage 1 and stage 2, they were fit for a traditional socket so they could go about their daily activities while they were waiting for stage 2 for whatever reason. All right, so guys, going back to this picture right here, during stage 2, the surgeons do their magic, and I'm going to describe it as magic, and Dr. Lazarides is going to go into more detail about that later. But they do their magic, and they work on the soft tissue, on all the muscle, on all the skin, and creating this beautiful opening. And we're going to call it an aperture. It's not a stoma. This is a very distinct feature between the OPRA implant system and the other types of OI. And then after that, you have the abutment. That's the little metal pole that sticks out, for lack of a better word. It attaches to this black device called the OPRA and then directly to the prosthesis, okay? And just as a comparison, folks, those of you who are above the knee amputees, let's do a quick COSI poll. How long does it take you to put your liner, your socks, your suspension system, and get standing? And then, do the whole amputee dance to get yourself into the socket. 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. I want to hear from you guys who are above the knee socket users. How long does it take you to get into your socket in the morning? Let's see. Chuck asks a very good question, and this is a very common question that I do like to address. Is infection higher with OPRA? So tell us a little bit about the infection rates.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of really good studies that have come out. Dr. Forsberg and Dr. Potter and that whole group have done a lot of really good work. And the short answer is that the rate of deep infection that compromises the success of the implant is actually quite low. It's probably about 5 to 7% that we see this deep infection rate, and out of that, it's a very small number that actually need to have their implants removed or have kind of very invasive procedures to have that addressed. It is true, though, that for any osseointegrated prosthesis or implant procedure, the rate of superficial infection is a little bit higher. But again, these are usually infections that are local skin irritations, things that we can manage with oral antibiotics, and it's very rare that patients have to be admitted for IV antibiotics or washouts or additional procedures. And I will also say that the caveat to that is that it's really the first 6 to 12 weeks after the procedure that's the highest risk for infection. Once that aperture heals, the rate of infection and issues is incredibly low. And again, I think that that's really the key to success is if something does go wrong, is it a catastrophe or is it a manageable situation? And the nice thing that we've seen is that if you do have an issue, it's actually usually a pretty manageable circumstance because of all the work that's been done to get to that stage 2 and the way the metal has been attached to the bone and then the soft tissue on top of that.
Yeah. And guys, infection and some of the less pleasant aspects of osseointegration, that's something I like to tackle head on because this is an intensive surgery. It's a 2-part surgery. The recovery is anywhere between 6 to 12 months that you are dedicating to your recovery process. So this is an important question that you need to ask any surgeon that you are interviewing to do this procedure. And one of the questions that I recommend that people ask is, ask that surgeon, what happens if, and give them the worst case scenario, because unfortunately nothing is ever perfect and there will be infections and perhaps some serious ones. You want to know that your surgeon is well equipped to deal with this, that they know how to deal with these kind of obstacles, okay? We've had some of the world's most incredible surgeons on the show, including Dr. Lazarides here, and they will openly admit that they've had some complications with certain patients. And it's knowing how to deal with those complications, in my opinion, that determines the quality of the surgeon, right? How they know how to deal with these complications that can arise. All right, so let's see. Chuck says it takes him 5+ minutes. Dulcie says about 6 minutes or so. Donna says she doesn't have her leg quite yet. Marianne says 15 minutes, but I do some exercises during that time, and you're a baka, so that's going to take you twice as long, of course. So guys, with this particular system, seconds. Oh, you're going to have me do this. I literally just got this today, guys. I literally just got this today, so watch. I'm probably going to put it on like backwards. I'm going to put it on backwards. But basically, it takes seconds to put this on, okay? And that is one of the biggest differences between this system and a socket system. So Donna asks, what about diabetes? And Marty right after her says, is type 2 diabetes a disqualifier? That's another very good question.
So great question. I mean, we'll get a little bit more into the indications and contraindications a bit more later. Yeah. The caveat to diabetes is diabetes with severe complications or poorly controlled diabetes is a contraindication to osseointegration. However, patients who are able to control their diabetes, we're talking about, a well-controlled A1C, especially the ones under 7, or patients who are able to who do not have significant complications related to their diabetes. There's actually been studies on that as well, and those are actually arguably the patients that can do the best with osseointegration because they are going to be more active, they're going to be able to use their limb more, and ironically enough, it can actually help them with their diabetic control if they can be more active and live a more healthy lifestyle. So no, diabetes is not a contraindication, but of course you have to have diabetes that's well controlled because if we're talking about infection, that can be a risk. But the studies that we've seen published on these high-risk patient populations show that even though the rate of complications might be a little bit higher, the rate of additional surgeries may be a little bit higher, the rate of limb-threatening issues is actually not significantly different than the rest of OI as a whole. And so it just speaks to the fact that if we're choosing our patients correctly, we're helping to optimize them before these surgeries, and we all work together, we can actually have patients, even with diabetes or other minor skin or vascular-related issues, still have a really good outcome.
And it's just incredible to me. I did my first show with Integrum in 2019, a month before they got FDA approval, a month. And it was an absolute contraindication. So it's amazing how in less than 6 years, we've been able to progress enough where we can now open the door to offer it. And I agree with you. I think probably the biggest change I see with folks getting OI is the amount of mobility that gets returned to them, which will in fact help, obviously getting more mobility back for overall health right there. All right, guys, should we do another giveaway? We need to do another giveaway. And this one's a big one, guys. This one's a big one because I'm going to sweeten the pot on this one. So you guys know that the whole reason I can continue to do COSI talks, and I'm going to be going on 8 years now, guys, 8 years, is because I have the generosity for my sponsors. Truly, if I did not have them helping me, I would not have the resources to be able to bring these shows to you and have amazing guests like Dr. Lazarides here. So it is important for me, for my sponsors to also receive our support and helping them grow so that they can also bring more information to you. So Integrum has decided to open up a TikTok channel. So they're a little bit further ahead of me. I think they've got more followers than I do on TikTok. Guys, we need to help them grow this channel. Okay, so Jamie is going to put up here the Integrum TikTok handle very shortly. So we're actually going to make you guys do two things. Those of you who are on my email and on my text service, you already got an early raffle entry, so you're already good to go. I need you to follow them on YouTube and on TikTok. That's it. Okay, YouTube and TikTok. And we are going to go and we're going to pick 2 raffle winners, one from each one. Guys, if we can make it to 20 followers on TikTok tonight, I'm going to throw in 5 subscriptions to my Cozy Talk Strong Body program. Okay, does that make sense? Ooh, and I even have a QR code. I got to use my QR code. I got to show you guys how fancy I am. Look, guys, QR code. All right, so if you click on that QR code, that will take you to the Integrum TikTok channel. So follow them on TikTok, follow them on YouTube, and we're going to pick 2 winners. All right, and they're going to keep me posted. They're going to let me know when we reach 20 followers on TikTok tonight. I'm going to throw in 5 free subscriptions to my Strong Body exercise program for amputees. Capiche? Yeah? You guys got the pro? Is it clear? Clear as mud? What you guys got to do? I'm giving you guys homework assignments, man. Giving you guys homework assignments. Okay, so thank you. Integrum posted, there's their handle for YouTube, which is at Integrum AB. And then for their TikTok, it's actually going to be, oh, let's see. Can I do it? Can I do it? All right, and that is their TikTok one right there. All right, we got some people scanning. By the way, guys, I can tell when you're scanning my QR code. Yeah, I'm putting you guys on the spot. Got to do that. All right, so while we're waiting for you guys to start following those things, let's ask you and put you on the spot and ask you a couple more questions.
Perfect.
So when you decided to do osseointegration, obviously it's not you just wake up one day and you're like, you know what, I'm going to do OI.
Yep.
So you obviously had to build your team. How did you go about building this team? Who did you pick?
Yeah, we're really lucky at Moffitt. We, by virtue of our practice, we're used to working in multidisciplinary teams, but that is not only just us inside of Moffitt, but we're also very used to relying on our partners in the community. And I think that's the most important thing when you're building a team is understanding how to interact and meet people where they're at, right? And so we have a lot of patients that come from 6-8 hours away, flying internationally and regionally to come see us. And so we're used to trying to help patients and meet them where they're at and give them the resources they need to succeed. But that being said, I think with any team, you need to have the core components of that together. And in very simple terms, I think it involves 4 kind of core pieces. And so you need your orthopedic surgeon. And we are lucky here that, again, as orthopedic oncologists, we are used to coordinating complex reconstructive needs, complex soft tissue management needs, and getting an entire team together in the operating room to accomplish those goals. And so we don't just have one orthopedic surgeon here, we now have 3 orthopedic surgeons here who are dedicated to OI, which is awesome.
That's nuts.
And so that's a lot of the bony work, and we understand some of the soft tissue things that you need to make sure that they have a good functional outcome and a healing outcome. But we're also lucky to have plastic surgeons who are uniquely qualified with dealing with the most complicated reconstructive issues. And so currently Dr. Basta is dedicated to our program. He's fantastic. He's a plastic surgeon that did his training up at Penn and then came down. And we have another plastic surgeon who's actually going to be joining our program soon as well. So we'll have 3 orthopedic oncologists, 2 plastic surgeons. And so I think at the very core component, you need people that are committed to amputees as a patient population and understand the unique reconstructive needs that they're going to need. Their bone may not have seen any load for years. Their soft tissues might have undergone multiple traumas, whether it's radiation or chemo or injuries from motor vehicle accidents. And so, for us inside, I think we have the surgical expertise to help manage it. But like I said, you need more than that. And we're really lucky that Moffitt as an institution actually, kind of in a first for Moffitt said, we're not just going to commit to this program for cancer patients, we're actually also going to commit to it for any patient that might be a candidate and need it. And I think that's huge. And so we recognize that in the state of Florida, there's a huge unmet need for osseointegration. And it is a complicated process and program that not a lot of people want to commit the energy to, but for us, we felt like there's a huge need. And so we feel very lucky that the institution has also supported us in that endeavor and bringing on this program. But I've talked a lot about Moffitt, and like I said, it requires more than that, and we really leverage the skill and expertise of our community partners as well. We have to give Integrum a lot of credit because they've gone out there and trained a lot of people out in the community as well with how to handle these patients. But one of it is the rehabilitation specialists. You have to have good rehab, and I would argue that honestly we do our part, but the rehab is by far the most important component of all this. And
I didn't tell him to say that. I didn't say it louder for the people in the back.
But it does need to be a concerted effort with the prosthetist as well. And I think that that's something that's unique, is that you need patients who are well integrated with the rehabilitation specialist, the orthotist, the prosthetist, to be able to give them the best opportunity for a good outcome possible. And with that, we're creating a little symbiotic ecosystem where we all need to be communicating together. And at the center of all that's the patient, right? And our patients know how to directly contact us, because the minute there's an issue, we want them to reach out to us. We can handle it and get it sorted and then get them back onto their lives. But in very simple terms, those are the core components. We have a unique system here where we do not rely on just everything in one place. We have the folks and the expertise nearby for our patients that want to have that opportunity, but we also recognize that many of our patients are 2, 3, 4, 8 hours away. And so we also recognize the importance of meeting them where they're at and leveraging the skills and resources in their community as well.
No, and it was incredible. A couple of weeks ago, you gave a conference on OI, and I was invited to come and listen to this conference. And I really didn't think much about, I'll see people I know that I wasn't expecting that. And I walk in, I go, wow, this is my local Tampa amputee community. And it was so nice to see, first of all, the good prosthetists were there. There was a lot of the good prosthetists there, so that makes me really excited that they're going to be the ones working on your cases, and seeing so many people in the community coming together for that particular one. So let's see, Robert says, my plastic surgeon was awarded a $20,000 grant in order to go learn more about osseointegration. And I did want to give a shout out here that I did not want to ignore for Glenn, who is undifferentiated pleomorphic sarcoma survivor here, 2015 diagnosis, OPRA implant 2019 and 2020. And
That's
Glenn
amazing.
has been on my show, said his story. He is a high school teacher, bless his heart, and also a football coach. So congratulations, and Glenn, thank you again for continuing to support the show. Let's see, Robert says, with osseointegration, my prosthetic is feeling more a part of me than a socket ever was. And guys, I do have to comment on that. You guys know that my favorite word in amputee care is proprioception. That was what I literally did my first show on COSI Talks, was explaining the concept of proprioception, the ability for your brain to know where it is in space. And with something like osseointegration, where you have this metal implant going directly into your bone, I mean, that is just proprioception on steroids right there, right? I believe I listened to a talk the other day, I think with Kristen, who gave the talk, fellow physical therapist, and she said they did an experiment where they put carpet and hard floor underneath the person with osseointegration, and they could actually feel the difference in the textures right there. So it's pretty incredible right there what happens. Let's see. Robert asked, Doctor, what are your thoughts on recovery and attitudes, practical versus positive?
Yeah, I think that that's a great question. I think every patient has a approach to their recovery, right? And I think for us as physicians, it's important for us to give very concrete guidelines to help them navigate that process successfully. But at the same time, each patient's going to approach it, on their own timeline and their own attitude spectrum. And so I think, we love patients who approach it very seriously. We love patients who have a little bit more of a comical mindset about it. But I think at the end of the day, as long as we are setting up our patients for success and giving them the tools to succeed with the rehab protocols, the care protocols, everything like that, I think that there's no doubt that a little bit of positivity, a little bit of humor will go a long way, as Robert's saying here. But at the end of the day, again, we're just trying to empower our patients to navigate that process, because it is a long process. But at the end of the day, it's about being equipped and surrounded by a team that supports you and is going to help you navigate that journey successfully, whatever that looks like for you.
Yeah, and then Robert says, my doctor accepted my jokes and joined because he knew that is how I would recover the best. Have you seen the phenomena that are the amputee shirts? Have you encountered that yet? They have the best t-shirts.
Oh yeah.
With the best jokes.
Oh yeah.
So guys, I haven't seen though an osseointegration amputee t-shirt. One of y'all needs to come up with that and send me one of those shirts. I'm just saying, unless somebody already has this. Ginny probably has one. If there's anybody who has like a great osseointegration amputee shirt, it'll be Ginny. Let's see. Marty says, do you see OI becoming standard of care primary versus socket than OI? That's an excellent question.
Yeah, great question. For the short answer is, again, meeting patients where they're at. And we do see an increasing number of patients where we are considering OI as a first indication without them having failed a traditional socket prosthetic. By the FDA standards, that's technically pseudo off-label, right? They like to see us documenting, but oftentimes we're used to doing off-label things in orthopedic oncology, and so as long as we, with the patient, can kind of discuss the pros and the cons of an upfront OI protocol and process, then usually we have no problem getting it approved. But I think that the thing to remember is it's a lot easier to go from a traditional socket prosthetic to OI versus going from OI to a traditional socket prosthetic. So, and I think there's value as well to understanding, because we as physicians may understand the benefit of OI, but you know, as a patient, to go through the journey of understanding how a socket prosthetic is not the equivalent to OI is important, right? And there's plenty of patients with a below knee amputation that will do just fine with the traditional socket prosthetic. But if you have a very high amputation, right, it's going to be challenging to be functional, right? You can wear a socket prosthetic, but it may not just be as functional as something like OI can help that patient to be. So to become standard of care, I think that the reality is there's going to be nuances in which patients are or are not going to be a successful candidate with OI, but we are already seeing cases where we see patients right out of the gates where we say, listen, let's not try to you know, prolong this process. Your bone quality is going to be the best it's ever going to be right now. Let's consider starting with this from the get-go.
Yeah, and I've heard similar sentiments expressed by other surgeons, especially people that they know are going to have very, very short amputations that are going to be so difficult to get good suspension on those sockets, or people that the soft tissue has been damaged so badly with burns and grafting that they know it's going to be a very difficult socket wear. And I know from a physical therapy standpoint, you know, training someone with OI, it's a different set of training compared to socket. But to be able to, again, have that sense of proprioception, have that alignment, guys. I mean, if you look at this is basically taking the end of your femur and fixing it versus being in a socket and trying to get this thing to stay stable. It's like trying to get a popsicle stick stabilized in a Jello mold, right? So just even how the alignment can be so much more improved with osseointegration for the right candidate, All right, Van Gregory wants to know, what are the contraindications, right?
Yeah, another good question. So we talked about the indications, right? These are typically indicated for patients who have failed a traditional socket prosthetic. That can be for any number of reasons, right? They can have skin issues, inability to tolerate a socket, pain issues, and just functional, not meeting their functional expectations. So there's a lot of reasons why people may not tolerate a traditional socket prosthetic. Now, the contraindications are also equally as important to understand. Now, in kind of simple terms, and again, we meet patients where they're at and try to you know, understand each patient and their journey to see how they fit in with these things. But in general terms, we like to see patients having reached skeletal maturity. And we know that the pediatric amputee population is a totally different amputee population than adult patients. And the numbers are generally 22 to 65 years is the age range we typically consider our patients. And that makes sense, right? Under 22, they may not have reached skeletal maturity. Over 65, now we're starting to deal with issues like osteoporosis or concerns about bone stock and bone quality. And also just the ability to heal, the ability to rehab can be a little bit more challenging the older we get. We also need to make sure that that they don't have poorly controlled comorbidities, and specifically we look at things like chronic skin issues, right? So if you have chronic ulcerations or you know, very poorly controlled things like psoriasis and other skin issues, that can make the success of OI a challenge. Vascular disease, so if you have severe vascular disease, that can make wound healing a big challenge. Diabetes with severe complications, so that's another contraindication. So if you think about a lot of these medical comorbidities that might preclude you from having a successful outcome, those are generally considered contraindications. But like we talked about, every patient's journey is a little bit different, and we have plenty of patients who have had a history of complications related to like their diabetes or other medical comorbidities that are now well controlled and then can have OI and have a successful outcome. The final things to consider are just, you know, they have to have normal skeletal anatomy, i.e. we can't have any significant deformities so that we can actually accommodate the prosthesis. And they have to have an appropriate amount of bone stock to be able to accommodate the prosthesis. Although we were just talking about how, you know, with some of the custom exemptions and implants, we're actually able to push the limits on even that.
Pretty incredible. And that answers Bill's question, is there an age limitation with OI? And then Dulcie's question that says, if someone has osteoporosis, can they get an OI program?
Yeah. I mean, the final thing we talked about, we didn't mention is that you need a certain amount of bone left behind, right? And so the implant is a certain size, and if you need to have at least 2 millimeters of bone thickness left around that implant to make sure that we're minimizing risk of fracture, the bone's able to actually grow into the implant and the prosthesis. So we actually do a lot of planning before these surgeries, multiple scans. We talk with the company, we do a lot of planning to see if each patient will be able to accommodate, they have the appropriate bone stock. And again, I want to say that these are all general guidelines. They are the initial FDA approved indications. But as physicians, we try to meet our patients where they're at and understand, are they kind of patients that can still have a successful outcome?
So let's see, I'm trying to make sure because we've got a lot of questions coming in. Energy expenditure, guys, we're going to pause for just 1 second because, I got to put some giveaways in there. All right, guys, I am posting right now slightly larger QR code for Stacy's story. So if you go on the Integrum YouTube channel, they have beautiful patient testimonials. And the most recent one they put up there is Stacy's story. And I know that I have some viewers who like to do horseback riding, and I've received emails on how can I literally get back on the horse after amputation. So you want to go and listen to Stacy's story. Guys, as a reminder, you've got a homework assignment. I don't know where our TikTok count is, Jamie. But we need to get to 20 followers for Integrum tonight on TikTok. So guys, go to TikTok, follow them on YouTube, and we're going to be giving you guys lots of giveaways. So keep that going while we keep answering these questions right now. All right, there was a really good question. Marty was asking, energy expenditure is less, I assume, as opposed to a socket. Yes. Do I have any fancy literature to quote for you right now? No, because I stink at doing that. But 25 years of working in healthcare, I can tell you that if you are aligned properly and you're actually able to use your glutes and you're actually now able to start activating what's left of your hamstrings and your hip flexor muscles, it means you've got more muscles working for you. And again, the alignment is such a huge thing, guys. Those of you who've been using sockets for a while, when your alignment is off or when your socket is fitting too big on you and you've stuffed yourself full of socks, your energy expenditure is through the roof, right? So yes, I'm going to bet my lunch money that people who are using OI are going to be expending less energy compared to their socket cohorts. So yeah,
and we have the studies I was referencing earlier is that there is now actually a very good volume of evidence that says for, you take an equivalent patient and their socket prosthetic before OI and then after OI, the energy expenditure is much lower, the ambulation time much better, the time wearing a prosthetic much higher, and the functional outcome scores and measures that we use much higher. So kind of uniformly across the board, if we take that same now it's a little bit of selection bias, of course, right? These are patients who are ultimately going on to OI, but the improvements that we see in all of these parameters are significantly better. And it makes sense, right? Like we're saying, if you have a very high amputation, the amount of energy you have to use to get your leg and your body moving is much higher than if you have something anchored directly into your bone.
Okay, and then I think Bill was asking, is hanger into osseointegration? I don't know. We're going to have to ask Hanger. I'll have to check out some of my folks there and see what they think. Let's see. Robert, you're bringing the good questions tonight, man. He says, so what is expected as we age with this process in our retirement years?
Yeah, great question. And we as physicians have to acknowledge that we don't have all the answers yet, right? Like OI as a procedure is still relatively new, right? We are beginning to get that longer term follow-up. And we do know that with age and time, bone can wear out, right? Like our bone quality can go down. We can have other medical comorbidities that may occur that can compromise the success of our osseointegration. And so, yes, it is, we don't have the long-term data per se to know how these implants, and they are implants, right? And given enough time, many of these things can wear out. One of the nice things about being a modular system, which is what the Integrum OPRA system is that you can exchange out parts a little bit easier. And so if things do wear out, it's not a big to-do to go and have a relatively straightforward surgical procedure to get those modular parts exchanged out. But the simple answer is we don't have the 30-40 year follow-up and data to really know how these patients are doing in the long term.
We're getting there though, because OI has been around since 1990 and it was the OPRA. Yep. So I will say that the OPRA implant system has the most amount of research because it's been around the longest. So I'm really excited to see how that's going to continue to develop. We're going to answer one more of these questions, and then we actually have to get to like the topic of tonight's talk. You guys are amazing. This is why I love doing these shows, because we're like, we're going to go this way and talk about this and then talk about that, because you guys ask wonderful questions. So Dulcie is asking, can you have a hip replacement with this?
Yeah, the short answer is absolutely. We're actually planning a procedure coming up on somebody who has had a hip replacement up above and has an amputation down below. And so it goes both ways. You can have a hip implant above and have the OI below, or you can have the OI and then need a hip replacement and have the hip replacement. As we've kind of alluded to, there's some things that we as surgeons can do to set you up for success, right? Like you need to have a certain amount of bone left over to be able to accommodate the fixture. And then similarly, when we're putting a hip implant in, there are certain implant designs that we can use to help accommodate if there's less or more bone. And there are some things that we can do to space implants apart so that we minimize risk of things like fracture and also potential seeding from things like infection.
Okay. So there we go, guys. I will be picking up your questions again, but I do kind of want to get to this part. So, one of my favorite things, and I still stick with this about OPRA compared to other OI systems, is the management of the soft tissue. So what do I mean by that? Basically how the skin, how the muscle, how everything is neatly attached. And I've said this many times before, the OPRA way of managing soft tissue is very aesthetically pleasing, okay? It's very tight, it's very closed, and I think with one person, I don't know if it was Jamie, who said it looks almost like a piercing, right? It's just very clean the way it's done. Very minimal, if any, drainage. And the majority of the OPRA patients I meet, they really don't have drainage after the initial healing process, which is another really kind of cool thing about that. So now we've officially talked about the bonded matrix. I'm going to let Dr. Lazarides explain that, and we've got some really great pictures. So you tell me when you want me to put some pictures up.
Yeah, we can go ahead and throw them up. I mean, for us, this was really the impetus behind us choosing this system. And again, the two-stage surgical protocol is what sets us up for success. And this is, a trademark term, bonded matrix, but the reality is that this is the key to the success of this technology. And so this picture is great. It kind of shows it in very simple terms. And so what you can see is that this is truly unique to this OPRA implant system. And so what we're doing is in the very first stage, we're creating a bond between the bone and the implant, and that's that fixture that we were talking about. Now, what we didn't really talk about is that at that first stage, we're also creating a sealed barrier of bone. And so there's actually a cylinder, a tube of bone that we're packing around the area where the future abutment's going to go. And so the entire metal implant's actually surrounded by viable vascularized tissue. And this is the key to preventing infection, right? Every inch or every millimeter of that metal is surrounded by your own body's viable tissue, and it can bring blood cells and things to fight off infections and things like that. Then at the second stage, what we're actually doing is we are taking all that internal bony work that we've done, and we are now creating a seal, and that's a soft tissue seal, and it's a unique stump shape if you've ever seen somebody with this. And so what we will do is we will essentially pull the skin super tight over the end of the bone, and once that seals, that's what we're saying. We've got essentially this aperture. And the aperture is where the metal abutment can actually go through. And so you're creating the sealed environment that's kind of totally separate from the rest of the bone, the rest of the body outside of the bone. And it's really just this contained environment that's completely surrounded by healthy tissue. And that's the concept behind the bonded matrix.
That is incredible. And guys, I'm going to go ahead and post another video right here. And for videos on loan to me from Dr. Jason Souza, where you can just see, first of all, how clean and neat. Whoops. Sorry, guys, you know me. There we go. Not gonna work. Sorry, guys. You guys know that gremlin that lives in my computer, he's been behaving most of this night, but... Two out of three ain't bad. Two out of three ain't bad, right? We got most of it going.
But it is remarkable, meaning from day one, I have my patients control their metal implant with their actual hip. There you go.
Now it's going super fast.
And it's a totally different experience for them because the soft tissue doesn't move. It's just the metal in the bone that's moving. If we as surgeons have done our job right, we want a really tight, well-cushioned stump that's pulled all that soft tissue out of the way. So it's literally just metal, then skin, then bone, then the internal fixture.
Okay. And then one thing I do want to clarify, because I feel people get this mixed up. Some people seem to think that the skin is adhered to the metal side.
Yeah.
So can you clarify just that? Because I know it looks like it, because when you look at it, it's so nice and tight that it looks like it's attached to the metal, but the skin is not attached to the metal. So I'm gonna let you explain.
Yeah, so the skin's actually, it's like a skin graft almost. You have essentially attached, you have skin that's healed to the end of the bone here. And so that's what I was saying. The rest of your muscle and your soft tissues here is a completely excluded environment to what's going on here, where the fixture is meeting the bone cylinder, where the abutment is slid through, and then it's skin attached directly to the bone. And that's why it doesn't move, is because it has physically healed directly to the bone. So there is no movement anywhere else. This whole interface down here at the very end is a completely fixed construct. Now, eventually you will get some granulation and sealing of the tissue here, but that's not really the concept. The concept is actually what's going on to the bone and the soft tissues directly attached to each other. And that's the bonded matrix, yeah.
Very good. And guys, I just want to announce, guys, we got to get this TikTok going. We're going to post up there on TikTok. We need to get to 20 followers tonight, because then I'm going to add to the giveaway, guys. So if you haven't already done so, I know not everyone's on TikTok, but if you are, please go follow Integrum. We do have our first winner. All right, we've got Scott Hager. Scott, you are one of our first winners, so congratulations, Scott. Guys, send me an email. Let me just do this now for housekeeping purposes, because if not, I'm going to forget, and my secretary is going to get mad at me. And I am my own secretary, so. All right, here we go. Guys, that is my email right there. So if you are a winner tonight, please be sure you email me your address so that Integrum can send you your swag bag. So Scott, I know I have your address somewhere, but go ahead and send it to me again. And then guys, for those of you who are new to the show, just a reminder, the show is for you. For those of you in the amputee community, whether you are an amputee, a clinician, a family member, or a caregiver. There are so many different ways to contact me with your questions. This is one of those ways right there. I do answer all of my emails within 2 business days, most of the time. I'm a little bit behind right now. But guys, if you do have any questions, or if you have any questions that you might think of that you want me to pass on to Dr. Lazarides or to the Integrum team, please feel free to email them to me. All right, let's hear. We got some good questions rolling in. Marianne asks a very good question. What if you had terrible time healing from your amputation? It took me forever with wound facts.
Yeah, it's a great question. And one of our recent patients had the exact same experience and the exact same story. And I think to answer that question, we have to understand what was the issue at the first surgery, right? What were the factors that might have led to the issues with wound healing? And just because you had a hard time healing the initial amputation does not necessarily preclude you from being a successful candidate with OI. So I'll give you an example. We had a patient that underwent probably over 20 surgeries related to infections and amputations from her sarcoma that she was diagnosed with, and then had an implant that got infected, and then had multiple procedures resulting in an amputation. And the amputation required 4 or 5 surgeries to get the wound healed. And we understood that the biggest issue there was the soft tissues, right? And even though the soft tissues at the were a problem, we recognized that there was a huge amount of soft tissue redundancy, and the bigger issue is radiation. This patient had been radiated before, and so we were actually able to take her amputation level above the radiation zone. And my plastic surgeon who works with me a lot in these cases did a ton of soft tissue management and work, and she was able to heal up much more successfully with that process. I mean, from her, even her stage 1, it was all the plastic surgery, but the stump looked best it had ever looked in her surgeries. And so the answer to the question is that it depends, right? We have to understand what might have been happening at the original surgeries. Was it related to infection, blood supply? Were there other factors that might have been contributing, like poor nutrition, or just simply that there were issues with the surgery itself, right? Those things happen. And if we can understand that, then we can understand how we can set you up for success with OI. But again, it's not for everybody. We need to understand your journey, and that will help us to understand if you can be successful.
This is also a good question because this goes back to what you mentioned earlier about pulling out into your community, especially for your folks that travel in. So Robert asked, just curious, if we elected this option and we are out of town, could we invite our primary surgeon along to learn how to monitor and still provide local care? So how does that work for you when you have patients that are out of town? Do you communicate with their clinical care team from their hometown, and how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, we try to be ultra accessible. I think that's a key to success here, and that's what I was saying, before, is that we as in our community, we have to be comfortable relying on our community partners to help us be successful with this program. And so we have protocols and things that we have partnered with Integrum to create and provide that education and those resources to our providers, our orthotists, our rehabilitation specialists, and our patients. But the reality is that, yes, we are more than happy to interface and educate, and we are very frequently communicating with their local physiatrists or rehabilitation and amputee specialists to help optimize their outcomes. So absolutely, I think that's a key, honestly, a huge key to success is leveraging the strength of your local team and your local community to help us and help you be successful with OI.
All right, guys. So one of the questions was, how can I find a surgeon who does OI in the Detroit, Michigan area? So I do have a QR code, not for Detroit, Michigan, but just a general listing. And I know this list is being updated because they are expanding and adding more doctors who are being trained with OI. So you can click on that QR code. And guys, as always, like I said, I'm happy to help with the communication. There are several of you that behind the scenes have contacted and reached out to me, and we've been able to connect you with someone close to your area. If we have any Floridians or anybody outside of Florida who would like to come visit sunny, hot, sticky, mosquito-laden Florida, I know I'm a great sale for this one, right, guys? But they'd like to come see you. How would they go about getting a consult with you here at Moffitt?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if at the link that you have right there, we have our website, we have our contact info. We're really lucky because all of our scheduling is handled by our own scheduling team. So, in the Moffitt community as a whole, if you call their appointment line, they're also aware of this procedure and this process. And so we're highly accessible. You've got the email that's listed on that website is actually the direct email to our team. So you can certainly reach out and inquire. And like I said, we have 3 of us orthopedic surgeons and then soon to be 2 plastic surgeons dedicated to this program. So any one of us would be happy to consult and discuss. And we have patients who send us emails all the time, just want to jump on a quick call, learn more. We're happy to be that resource as well.
And guys, I will put in my personal recommendation. As you can imagine, as a clinician, I was real picky about who was going to be handling my own care. And I can honestly say at Moffitt, I did not have to be the clinician. I just had to be the patient. And with 4 kids at the time and husband working and me working and all of the crazy schedules for surgeries and chemo, Moffitt did not drop the ball once. Truly incredible team, well-oiled machine. And I can say that for all of their departments here. So I cannot recommend Moffitt enough. Okay, let's see. We got Scott. Guys, we got another giveaway winner. Let me announce it because I always forget sometimes when I close the show down and I don't announce all the winners. Sorry. Cheat sheet. All right, our next winner is Adam Floyd. So congratulations, Adam. Adam, please be sure, I'm going to put my email on here again. Please be sure that you send me your address so that we can send you your swag bag. All right, so Integrum is saying we are up to 15 followers on TikTok. We need 5 more, guys. 5 more. I feel like I'm one of those PBS fundraisers. You know, they're like, if you unlock the next level, you get. So guys, seriously, swag bag. We got 1 more swag bag to give away. And then if we can reach 20 followers on TikTok in the next 10 minutes, then I will give away 5 free subscriptions to my Cosi Talk Strong Body program. All right, let's see. Robert says, sometimes you need to be your own advocate. I had to search out a physical therapist to be trained for OI. Yes, guys, and this is something that I'm going to, I got to do my PT soapbox thing, but that is a key component. And when you are interviewing a surgeon, and yes, it is an interview, you are interviewing your surgeon the same way you should be interviewing your prosthetist and your physical therapist. One of those key questions is, who is your rehab team and how have they been trained, right? What are some other questions that people should be asking their surgeons if they want to do OI?
Yeah, I think there's a lot, and we have to, again, understand your journey in terms of where you've been and where you want to be going. I think some of the questions are, that we've discussed a lot on this show already, right? Like, what is the incidence of infection? If an infection happens, what does that look like for me? How do we manage that? Who do I turn to help address it? What's the worst case scenario if I do get an infection? You want to know about the other complications and things that can happen, right? Fractures, We saw a question about pain. And the answer is, yeah, you want to understand what the surgeons are going to do. Many of our patients have had a journey with phantom limb pain. We're lucky here that at Moffitt, our plastic surgeon is well trained in TMR and RPNI, and so knows how to handle the nerves and help to optimize the neurologic complications that can come. But, I think it's important to have a surgeon who's honest about the journey. I would also ask about, if we started tomorrow, what does this journey actually look like? When will I actually be wearing a prosthesis? And I think it's important to understand that for most of our patients, it's 9 to 12 months before they are fully independent and walking with their prosthetic unassisted, right? And we have to remember a lot of our patients haven't walked in years, right? Our first patient that we did was a bilateral, hadn't walked in 8 years. And is now walking with bilateral OI. So, I think that there's a lot of questions that are going to be unique to your circumstance, but I think it's really important to understand on a very granular level, what are the things that can go well? What are the things that can go wrong? And if those things do go wrong, who's going to be there to support me and manage it? And how are we going to take care of those things?
Absolutely. And this is also a very interesting question. Is OI MRI compatible?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I've had several patients who have had MRIs with OI. It can sometimes get a little bit hot, but I've not heard of any issues with OI and MRIs.
Okay.
It's just like any other implant that's implanted directly into your bone. And so as long as, everything's attached, they'll take off the implant and the prosthetic, obviously.
Okay, sorry, I was trying to get this question right here. Robert says, now there is a difference in pressure and in pain when it comes to OI. And Robert is asking, can I put lights on my OI leg? I have lights on my current leg. I want to see, well, you have sent me pictures in the past, Robert. I want to see pictures of that. We have Halloween coming up. Yeah, so this is interesting. All right, guys, last winner from our TikTok. And all I have is the TikTok handle. So I'm going to be sending a message to this person, RockinKey124. RockinKey124, you are the TikTok winner for this evening. Holy cow. I think we covered everything.
Pretty good.
I think we earned our supper tonight. I don't know about you. All right, guys, this has been, we're going to be closing up this show. This has been amazing. First, I want to say thank you. Thank you so much. I know you are very busy. You're a father, you are a surgeon, a husband, and you are dedicating this time to be here tonight with us. So we appreciate it very, very much.
Thanks for having me.
A huge, very special thank you to Integrum. You guys are amazing. I love working with your team and bringing this information and knowledge to my viewers in a whole nother level than I could ever do on my own. And then finally, to Moffitt Cancer Center. Thank you so much for helping me start this journey 10 years ago and allowing me to continue this journey with all the care and support that you gave me and my family. So guys, thank you again. As always, thank you for letting us be a part of your lives this evening, and thank you for being a part of my life in these past 8 years as we've taken this journey together. I will be seeing you next Wednesday. I will be on a plane to Poland, and I'm going to try my best to see if I can broadcast from Poland. But in the meantime, guys, keep sending us those questions. If there's any questions that you did not want to ask publicly and you want to ask privately, please feel free to send it to my email right there. Happy to connect to you, or if you just want to say hi and drop me a line, I always love hearing from you guys. All right, guys, as always, I will see you guys next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.